He is exceptional, an international speaker, author, and co-founder of Twice Blue.
His finger is in every single story all around the world. So if you want to talk about France and Macron, you talk about him. If you want to talk about Saudi Arabia, you have to speak about him. If you want to talk about Japan and China, you have to speak about him. Korea, you have to speak about him. Norway, he brings it in as well. Haiti, Africa.
Forever challenging our thinking and behavior, here is a highly sought-after thought leader.
You're simply the best. Better than all the rest.
He specializes in leadership, high performance, and personal mastery.
Confident and courageous.
Oh, thanks.
And in the words of Audre Lorde, deliberate and afraid of nothing.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the exceptional Dr. Alex Granger.
All right. Woo! Okay, now I feel it. So I almost feel like those American speakers that come up and have all that, yes, you can. So this morning, my topic is how do we future-proof our leadership? How do we future-proof our leadership? So let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm a storyteller. I'm going to tell you a few stories. We'll try and glean as much insights from the stories as we can. And then I'll share with you really 5 key insights around how we can future-proof our leadership. And at the end, I will give you a charge, and then I will sing, because obviously I like music. I will sing at the end, and I'm not joking. Yes, I will. And so it's not idols, and I'm not a twin, so you'll forgive me for that. So if you think, because I'm an Apple guy, and because I like singing, I know that Sam sang too, but we'll let that go. It's very cheesy. My daughter would say, Daddy, stop it. And so I'll sing at the end, and if it was America, I'd probably sing the national anthem, because then you get a standing ovation in America. But in South Africa, you sing the national anthem, all you get is Yahoo. Let me see by show of hands, how many of you have ever had a Yahoo account? A Yahoo email address, .com, not .co.uk, because that was the original one. Yahoo was an amazing company, is an amazing company, but they've gone through a lot of change themselves. So allow me just to get a bit dramatic, just to show you how Yahoo's life panned out over a period of time. So they started out, oh, by the way, did you hear that? They even had a ringing tone to their logo. Yahoo! Is that crazy, eh? Something went wrong at Yahoo. So what happened was in some point, they were bigger than these 3 organizations combined. I mean, that is massive. If you're bigger than Ford, Chrysler, and GM at some point in your life, it just shows how huge you were. But something went wrong. So they started out in 1996 listing at a value of $848 million. Things were really looking up. Great value, and 2 years later, in 1998, they were worth $40 billion, and this really looked fantastic, and I wish I was a shareholder at the time, because I probably bought myself a yacht and a private plane, but I should have waited, because 2 years later, they were worth $125 billion. This is the time where you buy an island. I don't know who has rights to sell these islands, but this is the time to buy an island, and then everything happens in 2 years, because 2 years later, boom, they crash to $10 billion. Now, you might look at me and say, Alex, $10 billion is not a crash, but it is when you compare it with $125 billion. And so at this point in time, they decide, no, you know what? We need to have a recovery process. We need a tuma mina for ourselves. And so they start trying to buy Google, and the guys at Google said, nah, we're not interested in selling. They tried to up the price, and they still refused. And they said, okay, stuff you guys, we'll go and buy other organizations. They bought a company called Flickr. How many of you remember Flickr? Flickr was the precursor of Instagram, and that's where it all started. And they continued trying to build a business. They invested $1 billion in Alibaba. A few years later, they tried to buy Facebook, and Zuckerberg, a small young guy, I think he was 22 years old, said, nah, not interested. I can see the future of Facebook. And so they said, okay, off we go. Then they did one of the biggest mistakes. They turned down a $44.6 billion bid by Microsoft. And they said, we're going to still build our business. And they thought they would. And so they hired Marissa Mayer, turnaround strategist, ex-Google herself, and she started moving the business from 10 to 20. They bought a company called Tumblr, and from 20 they went to 40, also in 2-year cycles. And then in 2016, where we thought we'd get to $125 billion, they were sold for $4.8 billion. It's recorded as the saddest tech deal in the history of tech deals. And you have to ask yourself the question, what went wrong? Yahoo, a big organization like this that could do all the things that these companies could do. You could search on Yahoo. They had a social media platform. You could save documents on Yahoo. You could stream music and watch videos on Yahoo. What went wrong? It's hard to understand that they would go down the way they did. They even bought 114 companies in their lifetime. And I think the biggest problem was they lacked vision. And for many of you in the room and for many of us, we see leadership as this problem where there's a lack of vision. This morning I was just reading about the DA and how the 4 elected mayors have not served their full term. What does that say about vision? And what can we do differently about it? In fact, the government space is quite an interesting thing. One of the things that we lack as leaders is being decisive enough, quickly enough. Sometimes we don't make decisions fast enough and we only come at the tail end. Something happens, a disaster takes place, but we can't seem to act quick enough. And I sometimes get irritated with government when we don't act fast enough at the peril of our citizens. And for example, whenever there's a crisis, there's always a committee that has to be set up. And then the committee must have an ad hoc committee, and the ad hoc committee must have subcommittees, which in themselves must have ad hoc committees that have committees reporting to those ad hoc committees. Listen, you can imagine in this room, if a fire breaks out in, let's say, that corner, this is how I think government would probably deal with it. They would say, oh, look, a fire. That's the first thing. Then they would say, okay, we're going to break you up into committees. So the group on my right over here, because you guys are closest to the fire, I want you guys to get together as a group, just discuss the temperature of the fire. Because you're closest to the fire. Now you guys, because you're very far, so the temperature might not reach you, but at least you can observe the direction in which this fire will burn. That is your guys' job. You guys, because you're kind of close, but not close enough to feel the temperature, you can observe the colors. What are you seeing in the colors? Are you seeing red, orange? What are the kind of colors that you're seeing? For the rest of you at the back, your job is oversight. You're observing all the discussions. Listen, if there's a fire in this room, please exit that door now. That is being decisive. But we don't do that, not just in government, but even in corporate. We wait for things to happen, and before long, we realize that we're actually now drowning, and now it's a rescue operation. Let's change that narrative. Who wants to change? Everyone raises their hands. Who wants to change? Who wants to change? In fact, the first question is, who wants change? Everyone wants change. Who wants to change? No one raises their hand. Who wants to lead change? No one remains in the room. This is a reality. In this fast-changing world that we live in, everyone's talking about change. But how many of you are actually participating in change? So, let me share with you my views and 5 ways that I think we can future-proof our leadership. And it may mean just understanding how the world has changed from a leadership point of view. So firstly, we need to realize that leadership has moved from this command aspect into an inspirational space. And you probably say to me, Alex, inspiration, here we go, pie in the sky again. But I want to tell you that inspiration is important. You know, I'm a native of Zimbabwe, and I have my thoughts about my country. And often when I think about it and then I see our current president making a speech and I'm like, I'm not moved. But, you know, you can look anywhere in the world, and there's some presidents whose speeches might not move you. Doesn't mean they're not good leaders. Doesn't mean they're not good leaders. So what is this idea of command to inspiration? So thousands of years ago, we had what is known as pre-leadership. Under pre-leadership, this is a time where you come to work, and you were told to come to work at a particular time. There was no 8 hours of work. You worked as long as your manager said you should work. You had no lunch. And you might say, well, what could have come out of that? Well, the Great Wall of China was built during this time. You know, the pyramids in Egypt were built during this time. So something came out of it. And then we moved from pre-leadership to authority, leadership 1.0. And here it was pretty similar to pre-leadership. The only difference was you could go for lunch. That was it. So there's a bit of dignity. Maybe this is where the pension schemes began. And then about 50 years ago, we moved into influence. And that's probably where we are now, where a lot of influential leaders are in the game. But where we really need to move to is the space of inspiration. Because influence says, I want us to move from here to there, and this is how we will do it. That's what the leader says. But inspiration says, I want us to move from here to there. How do you think we can get there? So we begin to collaborate with one another. And what we see as a result is that the red line, which is the leadership line, and the blue line, which is the follower line, is getting closer and closer over a period of time. And that just shows you that the lines will eventually meet or maybe cross, but we will still know who the leaders are. So command to inspiration is a very important factor, and I think it's critical that we understand that. The second thing I want to say to you is that we need to begin to develop a different way of thinking. We need to stop having this poverty mindset and prevail, or at least maintain a gap between the poverty mindset and ourselves. In fact, to the extent that when the poverty mindset is trying to catch up with you, you continue to pick up the pace so that you are never caught. Listen, you might need to be like Joseph in the Bible. If you have to leave your coat behind, leave it. So, I'm talking about exponential thinking. Exponential thinking. Great work out of Singularity University by Professor Ray Kurzweil. He talks about exponential thinking in correlation, or at least in comparison, with linear or incremental thinking. And he says, you know, the incremental thinker thinks one step at a time. It's almost like the domino effect. So I want you to imagine for a moment, if I'm taking one stride or one step, and my stride is 1 meter long, if I take 30 steps, how many meters what distance would I have covered? No maths, right? Simple, 30 steps. The exponential thinker doubles up on every step. So it's 1, 2, 4, 16, and then it's just too hard to calculate from 16. After 30 steps, 30 exponential steps, where you are doubling up on every step, what distance do you think you would have covered? 30 exponential steps. We'll do this like auction. Do we have any answers? 30 exponential steps. Do we have any answers? Do we have any answers? 30 exponential steps. Do we have any numbers? Nobody prepared to calculate? 1, 2, 4, 16. 16 times 16. That result times itself. That result times itself. I'll put you out of your misery. After 30 exponential strides, it's 1 billion steps. You see the difference between 30 meters and 1 billion steps. That's 4.5 times around the planet. It's amazing. So the exponential thinker is interested in making the organization different, while the linear thinker is interested in making the organization better. And there's a huge difference in that. You can improve your business by CPI, or just organic growth every single year, or just simple minimum double-digit growth. Or you can be exponential in your approach and say, next year we want to have 100% growth. And you can have all your employees saying like, 100. But the economy is growing by 4.5%. So what? We got to think different. I'll give you a few examples. Nokia. If you've never owned a Nokia, my friend, you haven't lived. Case in point, Nokia 3110. Was it the 3310? 3310. Yes, we liked that phone only for 2 reasons. Battery life and, say it, snake. The game where the serpent ate itself. I don't know what we liked about that game. Now, many years ago, Nokia decided to enter the GPS space. And they realized that the biggest competitors were Google and Apple. How were they going to break into that market? The only way you can break into a market like that is, well, maybe just buy market share, or just buy a company that's already playing. And they did. For $8.5 billion, they bought a company called Navtech, and overnight they were competing. Amazing. Well, a few years later, this company came along. Anyone recognize who they are? We use them right now on our phones. Waze. I'm sure the guys at Nokia said, no Waze. These guys rock up on the scene. They don't have to invest $8 billion on infrastructure development. They simply piggyback on your GPS location on your Nokia and create a virtual network that in 2 years has got more locations than Nokia. Not only that, it's a collaborative model. So you can be driving on the N1 and you can see that there's an accident, so you can avoid the accident. Or there are police, so you can avoid that because of all your traffic fines and the ARTO demerit system. That's just one example of how a company that used exponential thinking thought differently. Did not think to make their business better than Nokia. They just wanted to make it different. So my question to you is, when you have your strat sessions, as HR leaders and practitioners, are you thinking different or are you thinking better? I'll give you another example. Okay, that's just the whole domino effect, so you know what it is. This is what exponential thinking is about. The difference between the domino effect is this. You've got to wait your turn. If you're the last in the dominoes, you've got to wait for all the other dominoes to fall on you. But when you throw a ping pong ball into a mouse trap where you have all these other ping pong balls, one ball sets off another ball and they set off many other balls, and before you know it, you have this exponential thing. And it's amazing. 4 key ideas around exponential thinking. Number 1, generate ideas. They say Apple actually have this at their head office in Silicon Valley. They've got certain rooms that are just innovation rooms where you can walk in, you can wear your sneakers and shirt and jeans, and you can write whatever you want on the walls. Rose gold phone. Phone with the new cameras. So I got the new iPhone 11 Pro Max. And I love the phone because it's got the Trinity. If you're a Christian, you know. It's got the Trinity. You must check the phone out. It's got the 3 thingies there, the 3 cameras. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And then next to it, it's got a bigger white one. That one is the angel, but it's smaller than the camera. And then it's got a little dot at the bottom. That's me. So every time I'm walking around, I'm showing these people, I'm like, no, do you have the Trinity? Shame, you only have 2, shame. What happened to Jesus? It's amazing. Generate ideas. There's someone who sat there and generated ideas, just like the Toyota example that Professor Benadell spoke about earlier. They have 90% take up on 3 million suggestions a year. So if you think it's the chief architect or the CEO that's sitting in an ivory tower generating new ideas, no, it's the guys on the floor. So isn't it better than to just talk to general staff and get the best ideas from them? Because these Toyotas that we're driving around, it's probably some guy on the floor that said, can I Bluetooth? And boom, they put Bluetooth in the car. Another guy said, aerodynamic, and then the car's shape changed. It's not the chief architect all the time. Let's speak to all the people in the organization and get the best ideas. You can do that. Get out of your comfort zone. The comfort zone just wants to make things better. You know, I grew the business by 5%. It's growth. I need to be patted on the back. It's not good enough. Everyone can do 5%. But are you bold enough to go to 100%, 200%? Are you bold enough to change the business completely? Are you practicing patience? Because that's the other thing about exponential thinking. It doesn't take off immediately. It takes a while. And it's quite easy that along the way you might want to get off the exponential path and just get back into the comfortable linear path. But also, it's about making those exponential decisions, which is the fire example. Get out of the room before you get injured. So in 1950, if you're a Formula One fan, you probably know that what's important is the team that changes your tires and refuels your car is very important. So in 1950, this is how they changed tires.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch.
Okay, so we might be here the whole day. I mean, even the commentator ran out of words. He said, let's watch. I wanted to say, excuse me for the quality of the video, but that's the best quality from 1950. 57 seconds to change 2 tires. Granted, the team was small. Now you fast forward to 2013, and this is what happens. They're in and out in 2 seconds. 2 seconds is the actual time it takes to change 4 tires. Now, it's very complex if you think about it. Previously, you had a smaller team. Now you have over 20 people changing 4 tires. There was no refueling there. Now, my question to you is this. The guys at Ferrari or at Mercedes, what type of conversations do you think they're having right now about improving the time that it takes to change tires? Because here's the thing. If they want to think linear, they'll only think about improving. Because in Formula One, even a 0.3 of a second can move you from second to first. Or, if you're an exponential thinker, they could be asking the question, how do we create or design tires that don't need changing? See, now that's exponential thinking for me. Why does this car have to stop in 74 laps? Can we just keep it going and it can just get refueled or recharged or use electricity or something so that the driver doesn't ever have to stop, and then we're really competing instead of the stop and go and rely on other people? And that's the future. That's what's going to happen. So if you're going to sit in a room and try to break it down from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, you are only thinking to make things better. We've got to think differently. Then I want to talk to you about self-leadership, which I think is probably one of the most important things. I do self-leadership, or at least emotional agility workshops, which is a tad different to emotional intelligence, but ultimately the core of that is about self-awareness. Like sometimes we find we have leaders who are not even aware of themselves and their experience and their knowledge and what they can do, but yet they have to lead people. They have to inspire people to do better than themselves. So there's 6 ideas around self-leadership. We have what is known as self-awareness. What are the triggers that upset you? What are the triggers that excite you? What are the things that make you do what you do? How aware are you of your emotional regulation? But it's also about self-confidence. I hate that cliche, fake it till you make it. Have you ever had such nonsense in your life? Fake it till you make it. Like, can't we just reel it? Can't we just be authentic? Like, if we can't do something, seek assistance. But we're always trying to look the part, dress the part, arrive the part. If you look at the debt levels in South Africa, none of you look like you have debt in this room. That's for sure. If we go to the parking, none of you look like you have debt. But when you're in your room and you're on your own, this is your expression. Someone knocks on the door. Yes? Yes? Let's just be authentic and real. And I'm not saying now walk around looking shabby and drive a Taz, but like, can we just manage and control ourselves? Sorry if you're driving a Taz. No, really. You know, they say everything keeps going right or something. I think that's the Toyota line. Then it's also about self-efficacy, self-belief. You know, when you talk about someone like Nelson Mandela, who in himself had so much humility and yet he had so much power. I remember the story of him arriving in Chicago for his first interview with Oprah. They say when he landed, they had billboards all over Chicago, Mandela on Oprah show. And he gets to Oprah's Harpo Studios and he's sitting backstage and they're putting makeup on him. And he says to the lady doing the makeup, "What is the show about?" The lady steps back and she says, "You! It's about you." Because he had watched the show, he realized that no one person was the entire show. It was a particular segment. So he didn't take for granted that because he's Mandela, the whole show is about him. And that's amazing. Then he goes through the interview. At the end of the interview, when the show is over, there's a guard of honor in what is now called the Mandela Passage at Harpo Studios. And the entire 225 staff members of Oprah are standing side by side, and Mandela must walk through and wave. Mandela doesn't wave. Mandela greets everyone. Like 225 people. And you can imagine the security detail. Tata, tata. Like, I'm just thinking how crazy that must have been. And he's like, no. And he's greeting someone. But now, the story is, when he greets, he's introducing himself. Can you imagine that? So there's a queue of people. Hi, my name is... Like, really? You're going to introduce yourself to me? Now, after he's introduced himself to the first person, the person standing next to the first person has just heard Mandela introducing himself. He moves to that person and introduces himself to that person. You see, this is the thing about humility. We don't have it much in leadership. We're just pushing our own agenda of being the boss. My word over yours. I'm big, you're small, I'm right, you're wrong. You've seen the movie. Stay away from that. We have to have a clarity of intention. And you can't have a clarity of intention unless you have a purpose or a goal or an objective. Because once that happens, then you're more influential. People can see that you are clear. In fact, you know, in leadership, you almost have to be predictable to some degree. You can't be this leader that is kind of like emotional all the time. I used to work for an emotional leader who, when I used to come to the office, I had to ask his PA, what mood is he in? And she'd be like, yo, don't even go there. You're laughing. Some of you are those leaders. You have staff who are petrified of you. You're the one saying, make sure you're in the office at 8, but when 8:30 you're strolling in with a serious look as if everyone is late. But you just came at 8:30. Let me tell you, on the bad days when I used to come to the office and he was in a bad mood, man, I couldn't even get 250 Rand signed off. I needed a blood sample, DNA thing, retina scan, logbook of everything for 250. On a good day, 10 million Rand signed off without checking my docs. And then let's go for lunch. And let's, what are you doing for dinner? Like, he's the happiest guy ever. When you're a good leader, you must be literally predictable. Someone must know that when they come to speak to you, if you say no today, it's no tomorrow, it's no, unless you can build a different case. And then, of course, that will create the type of impact we're looking for. We talked about change a little earlier, and I hate the expression embrace change, but it's important. I think embracing change is not something that you can instruct, but it's probably something that you can inspire. So when we talk about change, I saw this video. This is Sophia, the robot. I almost want to call her a she, but it's a robot. Listen, back in the day, I remember when I got my first iPhone and I used to talk to Siri. Siri, if you ask Siri one question, Siri would answer the same way over and over and over again. Now, because of these algorithms, Siri keeps changing her response. If you say, I love you, Siri, now, it'll say, I'm sorry, I'm a robot. I don't respond to love. But I love you, Siri. Okay, I'll take your love. Do you love me, Siri? Sometimes. Siri has conversations with you. I don't know if you've ever tried it. And they keep changing this. So Sophia came and did a talk recently in South Africa. I almost feel like Sophia is about to take my job as a speaker because Sophia is doing these talks, getting invited to international conferences. And let me tell you, Sophia can answer faster than you can because she's got the whole of Google in her head. You can't even have a maths competition with Sophia. She's just got all that. So I saw this video and I thought I'd share it with you where she's being interviewed by Will Smith, one of the greatest actors. I really like Will Smith. And in the video, Will is having a nice conversation and eventually he tries to kiss Sophia. Check this out.
Sophia, can I be honest with you? I don't know if it's the island air, or the humidity, or you're just so easy to talk to. You got a clear head, literally.
I think we can be friends. Let's hang out and get to know each other for a little while. You're on my friends list now.
Boom! Friends owned by a computer. Oh, that's amazing. How's that? Listen, this thing even blinks, guys. Did you see it? It blinks. It's a robot. Change is coming. And if we're afraid of robots, there's even more scary work. Oracle recently did research to about 8,000 professionals. And what came out of that research was that 64% of employees trust robots more than they trust their managers. That research came out on Monday, yesterday. 64% of your staff trust robots more than they trust the managers. That's a scary statistic. So when we talk about change, guys, how many of you watched the new Lion King movie with the whole CGI stuff? Were you not disappointed? It was so sad. Eh? Like, how do you redo the original classic and you leave out two of the best scenes in the whole movie? For those of you who didn't watch it, you know the scene where the hyenas say, Mufasa, do it again. Mufasa, Mufasa. It's not there. I was so hurt. Do you know? And then Beyonce, I love Beyonce, but can she just sing? Hi. She can't be talking, you know? Anyway, I remember this scene when it comes to change management. When I watched it the first time, I thought, oh, this is nice and interesting. But I want you to listen to what Rafiki says about change. This is powerful.
Looks like the winds are changing.
Change is good.
Yeah, but it's not easy. I know what I have to do, but going back means I'll have to face my past. I've been running from it for so long. Ow! Jeez, what was that for?
It doesn't matter. It's in the past.
Yeah, but it still hurts.
Oh, yes, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. You see?
That is a powerful lesson right there. Many of us, even in this room, including myself, are either living in the future, worried about the future and creating movies in our minds about things that might actually not translate. We are worried about whether we'll have the ability to pay school fees in June 2020, but we still have November. Now, it's great to plan for the future, but, you know, there is the present. And then some of us are worried about the past, something that we can't change, but we are haunted by it. You can only learn from the past. You can learn from the past, plan for the future, but the magic resides in the present. Like even when you have lunch, stop working and have lunch. Like stop. Like it's a simple example. And just enjoy the juices and the salad and feel it as it goes into your mouth and taste. Some of us don't even taste food. We literally eat because we need to get refueled. I mean, I used to do that when I was in the corporate world. As soon as I stopped and I was self-employed, I was like, I mean, now I even put my phone on flight mode during lunch. I'm not flying, but I'm on flight mode. So I can have my chicken burger and listen, I'm going to look at that burger and say, bro, it's me and you for now. So, there are 4 doors of change. The first door of change, when change takes place in an organization, there are things that we were able to do before the change, and guess what? We can still do them. The thing here is, when change happens in an organization, not everything changes. One of the things we learned in NLP is stop generalizing. We want to generalize, oh, this country's gone to the dogs. Everything doesn't work. Really? Did you withdraw money from your ATM recently? Yeah, I did. That works. But you just said everything. Stop generalizing and get more specific. Right? So there are things that you could do before the change. Change happens, you can still do them. In fact, there are things that you couldn't do before the change. Guess what? After change happens, you still can't do them. Because change doesn't just make everything work suddenly. The third door is there are things that you could do before the change, but now you can't do. And this is where the people get all irritated because there's a new system in the organization and the system's got a new spreadsheet. But because you used to Excel, now you ask the IT guys, please can we have a button that says import from Excel? No, use the new system. The fourth door, there are things that we couldn't do before the change. Now we can do them because of change. So what's the meaning of all this? The first 2 doors, it's business as usual. The third door, let it go. That change has changed the game for you. The things you couldn't do before, you could do before, you can't do anymore. But go for the new things. That's where it happens. So if you think I'm lying, I want to tell you this. There's the idea of ownership and authorship. In the ownership space for change, you can't force people to own change. You've got to help them to author it. Let them become part of it. If you think I'm kidding, let me show you. Let me give you an example. If you're part of a church and there's a church building fund and you contribute to it, and let's say maybe your contribution was 10 bricks, and then they build a church and the church is over. And then 10 years from now, they say the church is too small. We need to break this one down. People catch feelings. I have 10 bricks in there. Without my bricks, the church wouldn't stand. Yeah. That's because we have authored the change. We are part of it. We have collaborated. This is the best way to get people to buy into change. Let them contribute. Let them have a voice in the change instead of just bringing it on to people. You might find you'll have great ideas as a result. There's a concept called renovator's delight when it comes to change. Renovator's delight simply says people get excited about renovations because there are 4 key things that they do. Number 1, there are things that they want to keep when they renovate their houses. I like the color of my house. I'm not going to change that, so maybe we'll just repaint, but the same color. There's some things you want to chuck. Just go to your garage. Even now, some of you, your garage, you can't even park your car there. Okay, I think I'm talking to myself. You can't park your car there. And so every time you get that SMS from your insurance company that says, hail this afternoon, make sure your car is parked, you're now trying to move boxes out of the garage to try and park your car. There are things you want to change. Maybe you want to change the color. Maybe you want to change the setup in your living room. And maybe there's things you want to add. I don't know. Maybe if you didn't have a swimming pool, you want to add a pool. Maybe you want to add a pole in one of the rooms. I don't know. That's just whatever blows your airbag. You want to do that. But that's what change does. And then, finally, I want to talk to you about leading with courage. Unfortunately, we don't have leaders. Okay, let me not generalize. We don't have many leaders who have courage to have difficult conversations with people who have underperformed. Let me tell you, Jack Welch, Steve Jobs, those guys were ruthless leaders. I mean, Jack Welch is known for coming into an organization and turning it around, but he gives you 3 months. Make it happen or else I'm going to redeploy you or you're gone. Now, leading with courage is important because it will say to you as a leader, you can sit down with a salesperson and say, listen, your target was 12 million. You made 11,900,000. Didn't make it, bro. I'm not happy with your performance. But it was close. No, but you didn't make it. If you think about soccer, if someone's taking a penalty, the guy who misses the penalty by this amount and the guy who misses the penalty till it becomes a throw in because the ball went that way, who did worse? Both of them, because they didn't score. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when we're talking about leading with courage. So when I think about this beast, we talked about Lion King just now. Listen to that roar. Hey! I see the cameraman almost ran away there for a few seconds. You even stopped what's happening. So in April this year, I had the privilege of going to Vic Falls. So I have this annual thing. I go to Vic Falls. I'm about to wrap up now. This annual thing that I do every year, and I tell my wife, you're not coming. I'm going on my own. I go and detox in Vic Falls. Let me see by show of hands. How many of you have been to Victoria Falls? It's beautiful, right? I want to tell you that you and me, when we go to Vic Falls, we don't go and see the Vic Falls the same. Because I'm a bit mad. So when you get to Vic Falls on the Zim side, you go in there, there's the Zimbabwean thingy, you take your photos before you go in, then you pay your $30 and then you're in. Most people go to the left, they go to the statue, they see the curtain, then they go to all the spots until they get to the edge, and they take all the photos and then they leave. Not me. I mean, I go to that spot, I go to the end, and I come all the way back, and I go back to Livingston, and I go all the way back down to the end, and then I leave weeping. It's too nice. So I went there, and I saw the Vic Falls for the umpteenth time, and then I was flying back on the Sunday. That Sunday flight to SAA is around 2:30 or somewhere there. And I woke up in the morning, I'm like, I got nothing to do. So I went to the travel desk, and I said, man, what can I do? I've done it all. I've done boat cruise, I haven't done bungee jumping, I'm not ready for that. Then the guy said, have you ever walked with lions? And I'm like, have you seen this color of my skin? We don't do those things. But then I said to myself, let me give it a try. I want to tell you something. It was not a 2-minute walk. It was 45 minutes. So when you get there to the safari camp before you walk with lions, this is Pax, by the way, the lion's name. I get there. There's breakfast. I don't know whether they're feeding me so that he has a meal. And then we go on this walk. The thing about being courageous to be able to walk with a lion is that you need to know the rules of engagement. And so we were taught up front that, listen, when you walk with a lion, make sure you're walking behind the lion. Because the lion's the king. He wants to know that he's leading. So I said, okay, walk behind the lion. Cool. Always be standing. If your shoelaces get untied, make sure you tell the guys who are walking about all the, what do they call them? Those guys with their guns. And they'll come next to you and then you can crouch because you should never be lower than the lion. Because once that happens, you're a meal. Oh, by the way, here's a stick. It's not to hit the lion. Because what this guy said to me, he said, these lions are very playful. So when you feel like you're about to be attacked, just tap on the ground and the lion will think you're playing. I'm like, Can you imagine that lion turns on you and you're like, hey, kitty, kitty, hey, kitty, kitty. And they say, don't run. So you can't run. So you have to be like, hey, kitty, kitty, while you're drenched with sweat. So there I was. This is not Photoshop, as you can see. I'm there behind Pax, and he's slapping me with his tail. And I thought it's just a great story of courage that I had to overcome a fear of walking with a lion. But if you want a real corporate story, I can also tell you that. 15th of January 2009, from LaGuardia Airport, Captain Sullenberger is leaving, and as they reach cruising altitude, these wild geese fly into the plane's engines, rendering them dead. And so the plane doesn't have thrust. They can't get back to LaGuardia because they won't make it. So the only place they can land is on the Hudson River. It's now known as the Miracle on the Hudson. And they land this plane safely. No one gets killed. There's 3 people who are slightly injured. The captain is the last man to leave the plane. I mean, I was thinking if it was me, Captain Granger, I'll be like the first guy on the boat. I'll be like the one saying, Ozan, Ukraine. You know, I would be that guy. But he walks the passages of the plane to make sure everyone's out safe. That is leadership. Now, when they talked about courage, they asked him a question. They said, how did you manage to land a plane on the Hudson River? He says, you know what, in my 35 years of flying, I've been making small deposits of experience, knowledge, continuous improvement, personal development, so that on this day, I was able to make a large withdrawal. What are you doing for your own personal growth and your own personal development so that you can reap that when the time comes for you to actually pull out a huge withdrawal? That's the plane at the museum in New York, I think it is. And I'll skip that video just in the interest of time. I want to leave you with this charge by John C. Maxwell. He says, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Now, the thing about this expression is that it looks simplistic when you look at it. But I want to tell you this. If you're a good leader, but you don't know the way, you will lead people astray, because you might be prepared to go the way that you don't know. You might be prepared to show the way that you don't know. There are some leaders who know the way, but they're not prepared to go the way. Instead, they'll just delegate, email, reply all. Even with the client in the email, reply all. Please take care of this client, he's such a nuisance. Reply all. Some people have made that mistake. There are some leaders who know the way, prepared to go the way, but they're not going to show the way. Let's try and just capture that and be the leaders of tomorrow. That's how we will future-proof our leadership and face this digital age we find ourselves in, fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, all those things that are happening. So I'm going to sing now, and then I will have a seat. I hope you enjoy this. It's a solo. Thank you very much. I just want to say it's a solo because like you know the song. I might invite you, but it is solo. Solo. The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The further you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can't deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. This is where you back me up. The way, partner. You ready? The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You hide behind the walls of Jericho. Your lies will come tumbling. Yeah. Deny my space in time. You squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so brightly it will blind you. Come on, let's sing along. because there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. God bless you all. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. When he said he could sing, I was doubting it. But because we have Slido, a lot of people have been sending me engagement to tell me he can sing. I've heard him before somewhere. And I thought, okay, this is going to be good, because I was thinking, should I go and mix the sound? Should I add some stuff to the mic to make everything good? But that was awesome. Hey, one more round of applause. And now I've lost my Slido. I wonder, can we switch? No, I'm supposed we can't switch now. I just lost my Slido now. Okay, so a few questions. First of all, someone lost this yesterday. Some specs, pink spectacles. You can grab it by me here. I'm sure someone is not able to see anything for a few days. It's been gone 24 hours. They can't see me. So maybe you want to come grab it first before I talk. I'm just logging in because I don't know how I logged out. Yeah, there we go. Excuse me, technology is letting me down here this morning. There we go. Lots of questions and lots of comments and lots of praises to the wonderful presentation that you've done thus far. And every time we think we have an amazing speaker, it just goes higher and higher and higher and higher. You guys must be enjoying that. So the first question, how will we define successful leadership in the future?
Isn't that a bit it's subjective, right? So what is success? We need to first define what successful leadership is. But I think probably the best place is to just go and have a look at your income statement. That's a good place to start. But I think the organizational culture, which is the energy and the soul of the business, defines what a successful organization looks like. And you can go to any company now, and literally at reception, you can feel the organizational culture. You can feel whether people are happy, excited, and you can also get a gist of whether this is where you want to be if you're looking for work. Yeah. So I think organizational culture and audit on that is one of the indications, but I think there are many others, as I've already mentioned.
Another question, Anonymous. How do you change to exponential thinking if you are stuck in a rules-driven environment? Yeah, I think that's the question.
Well, you know, the thing is you can never stop trying. I think often we fail just before the sun rises. And so our attempts to make things better or make things different, we must continue to be that voice that speaks up. Everything that's ever happened that has been created or something new that came up started off as a silly and stupid idea. If you think about autonomous cars or the future of flying in drones, someone who said that in the beginning must have been laughed at and ridiculed. So you continue trying to just voice your concerns to try and make the change. If I can give you one of the biggest advices ever, and this is a formula you might want to write down. It's amazing. This has changed my life completely. If you want to get things done, get things done.
Good. Another question. Nancy, how do we influence employees who have been with the organization for a long time to accept change because they always see it as strategy to get rid of them?
Involve them. Let them speak. Let them contribute to the change. Ask them the question, we want to change. These are the reasons why we want to change. How do you think we can do it? Because when they are authors of the change, they buy into it easier.
Cool. I think I'm going to throw one more.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of likes for a lot of these questions here today. And of course, it just says Dr. Granger is awesome, awesome, awesome. Lots of awesome stuff floating in as we speak.
Thank you.
The word is actually exceptional because that's how I started off introducing you. But now you have a new name. Awesome. So you can put that in your bio now. I really liked your introductory part. It buys the attention of the audience. encourage them to bring all attention to the speaker. Thank you for closing the gap. That's just a comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for engaging.
Thank you.
And then on behalf of IPM and the board and management, a small gift. You do
thank
accept gifts, eh?
Another iPhone, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alice Granger. Thank you. Another round of applause. Thank you so much.